Well, Ryan, congratulations. You've got a new book out called Short Time, a wrestling snapshot. Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, it was a project that I had in my mind for years, just not knowing exactly what topic I wanted to tackle for the book. It came about just because it's something that I have a passion for. I have a knowledge of it. It's a book basically giving a little bit of a history or brief history of Southeast Warren, the school itself, how the towns came to be a part of the district, how the structure worked for all three towns to maintain an identity but still be part of Southeast Warren, because Southeast Warren was a new school district. It became the consolidated school district. And wrestling was something that I was part of my whole life growing up there, and it was a big part of the program that we had, or a big part of the school, I should say. And we had a lot of success. We had a lot of great individuals. We had a lot of great teams. And so I kind of put together the idea of maybe I want to highlight some of the guys' accomplishments that were state place winners. We had multiple state qualifiers that I didn't include in the book. I pared it down to 10 individual state place winners. So I talk about each one of them in their own individual chapter, starting anywhere from 1969 with Gene Wadley. He was our first state champ, and going all the way into 1993 with Rob Wadley and Corey Conrad, covering guys that were some of the smallest weights. We had guys qualified at 98. We had guys qualify at super heavyweight. I feature our most recent state champion in Mike Kilgore in 1987. And then I feature the coaches that were the main part of this program at that time. And what I'm focusing on is kind of the early to mid 80s into the early 90s, for the simple fact that I was around the program the whole time, with my dad being coaching, me coming up through the Pee Wee program, me wrestling through junior high and high school, and getting to know some of the guys that were a little bit older that I didn't know growing up, only knew them by name possibly, or that they came from Milo or they came from Lacona or Liberty Center. And then some of them I was on the team with, and we had a lot of success. And so I thought I would take that short time is a wrestling term, but it's also a short snapshot of Southeast Warren's wrestling program, and I put it together in a book. It's about 120 some pages. It's got quite a few pictures. It's a pretty easy read. And I feel happy that I accomplished the task of writing and publishing a book. And it was a passion project, and I enjoyed it.
Well, that's quite a bit of success for a small school. Mm-hmm. And what did the guys say? Hey, when you said, hey, I want to write a book, I want a chapter to be about you, what did they say?
They were all very appreciative of the fact that I was putting this project together and taking the time to do it. Some of them felt, well, what is my accomplishment really? Most of them have gone on to have a lot of success in other aspects of their life, from maybe their jobs and their careers, just their family life. But I mentioned, how much work it takes to be a successful wrestler, how much work it was put in by their parents, by the community, by the coaches, by themselves, obviously. They were all more than willing to go on the record and answer the questions that I had for them. And I mention it through the book. I kind of lay it out how I got the information for each one of the individual's chapters. Some of it was through email, some of it was through text messages, some of it was through phone conversations, some of it was in person. And so they all were happy to be a part of the project. I approached 13 individuals for it, including the coaches, and none of them said no. They all agreed to it. They all kind of did it in their own time, their own frame of answering the questions. Some of them got it right back to me. Some took some time. Some were needing to be a little bit pushed just because they weren't sure if this was anything that they didn't feel that this was necessarily a huge accomplishment in their life, but it was a part of their lives, growing up when they were younger. They put in the work and the effort, so I felt very happy that they all agreed.
So what's the common theme across all these guys and their success?
Everything I can say is they all, in one form or another, maybe not the exact verbatim, you got out of something what you put into it. So they put in the work to cut the weight, to be in shape, to have the physical aspects to go out there and wrestle. They had the knowledge of the sport. It was basically all about the work that they put in. And they all agreed that the coaches helped them, the community helped them, their parents helped them, their teammates helped them. So there was a common theme of work and community and success.
There's just something different about wrestlers than any other athletes, isn't there?
Yes.
What is that difference?
It's just a drive. It's you and the other guy on the mat. It's one-on-one. You're part of a team, but you're also individual. You're very vulnerable out there, and nobody likes to be embarrassed. Nobody likes to get beat. So they put in the work so that doesn't happen.
Yeah, you can be a defensive back in football, and somebody can score a touchdown, where you should have been. But that's a whole different thing than being on the field alone on your back.
Yes. And so for the most part, everybody that I remember or talked with when they were younger, they had varied degrees of success. And by the time they finished high school, they may not have finished exactly where they wanted. I only have 2 state champions in here, so the rest of them didn't quite get to that goal that maybe they had set for themselves. But they all accomplished it by putting the work in to get somewhere on that podium. And back in the day of all these guys, they only placed the top 6 wrestlers, where now they do 8, and they only took 16 wrestlers with the exception of Gene. His was only 8, I believe. But the rest of the guys, it was 16 participants at state, and only the top 6 placed. And I kind of lay it out in the book because some of the earlier guys, the way they became state place winners is a little different than the guys towards the middle and the end of the book, with double elimination and some of those things.
Well, we all can be a fan of a sport. We can all have participated in a sport, but it's a whole different thing to write a book about it. What drives you to write?
I enjoy reading. I don't mind writing. I don't know that I'm a professional writer by any means, but once again, the drive and the the attitude to put something through on paper and see it through from start to finish. I was probably an average wrestler myself, but this is something that I could push myself to and kind of get to maybe a similar feeling of what these guys went through when they made that award stand, when they made the podium, when they went through the walk on Saturday night with all the place winners. Mike Kilgore was a state champ for us in 1987. He mentioned that feeling on Saturday night of wrestling at the state tournament was just exhilarating. So I would say mine is not quite on that same level, but in a little different aspect, it's maybe similar. So.
But still, it doesn't matter how good. In the grand scheme of things, I mean, everybody wants success, but in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter. There's a lot of guys, well, and now girls, which is very interesting, I think really good. They can be average wrestlers, but it's still part of their identity. It's still part of what makes them who they are. You don't have to be state champ, national champ, or something without it being part of your identity and part of who you are and part of what brings success. And that's, pretty much for, any sport or any endeavor, any art like that. But there's just some kind of, kinship amongst wrestlers, I see.
Yes, it's the fact that whether you're successful or not, you're putting in the time. You will be in that room getting hot and sweaty and uncomfortable and irritated, and a lot of times back in these guys' days, we didn't cut weight the correct way. So you're very hungry, you're very irritable, you are ready to not be there anymore, you're ready to go do anything else, but for some reason you stay and you push and you push. And the success you get out of it is from what you put in the room and out of the room. It wasn't just practice that made these guys. They did stuff in the off season. They did more workouts beyond practice. They would come in early. They'd come in late or stay late, and just that mental drive, a little bit of stubbornness, I guess, I would say, and it makes it all worth it.
And so where do people find your book?
There is a link to a company called Book Baby. It's bookbaby.com, and you can search Short Time. You could search under my name. They're based out of New Jersey, and you can just go through any search engine, Google, and type it in, and you should be able to find it.
Well, I should have asked you this at the beginning, but what's short time, the title referred to?
Short time is a term for wrestling. If you're ahead in a match with 10, 15 seconds left in a period, or if you're behind, your coach may say short time, short time, short time, letting you know if you are ahead, stay there. If you're behind, you've got to pick up the pace. You need a takedown, you need an escape, you need a reversal, you need a near fall. If you're down by more than 3 points or whatever, you're going to have a back point. You're going to have to get some back points in there somewhere. So it's short time, just letting you know where you're at on the mat. This kind of a sense of urgency is what you get out of short time. And it could be, like I said, you could be ahead, it could be a positive, you could be behind, it could be a negative. It's just kind of a awareness tool that some coaches can use, and it's just a term that was, I thought, fitting for my book, because it is just a short little snapshot of history. And it's not a very lengthy novel by any means, so it's short time. So.
And your dad was your coach.
Yes, he was one of the assistant coaches. In the book, I kind of focus on 4 main coaches that we had during this program, or during this time in the program. They didn't all coach at the same time. I think 3 of the 4 were there a lot of the times, and then the 4th one added on. But so I focused on Ron Miller, who was our head coach. I focused on Gene Wadley, who was an assistant coach, and Albert Butler. And then the final coach was Larry Boozell, my dad. So.
Well, and you wrote something I thought was interesting about your dad, philosophy, how they looked at things, the other coaches too. Would you mind reading a short section of that for me?
No, I can definitely do that. He was assistant coach from about 1982 to 1995. He was the Des Moines City champ for Des Moines Tech High School in the mid-'60s. And just kind of his philosophy of our wrestlers, our teams, our program. He believed that he and the other coaches tried their hardest to bring out the best in each of the individuals, which in turn would bring out the best in the team. They would try to figure out what motivated an individual in certain productive ways. Some guys were better left alone the closer it got to weigh-in day because they were hungry, they were irritable, they had put in the time and the effort and needed to make weight so that they could eat and replenish their strength. Some guys, when you would try to get a little extra work out of them, would fight back quite a bit early on in the process, and then it got closer to weigh-in days, they were a little less energetic maybe. Others would scrap with them anytime they were provoked. That's just the way some of the skirmishes went in the wrestling room, and that could be from guys with each other kind of getting a little bit heated. That would be from coaches trying to get them a little extra motivated, a little bit more work in. And it was a balancing act, trying to figure out which techniques motivated one guy and which techniques worked better on the different wrestlers. So, but it was the coaches, they just did the best with what they had in the room in any given year. And I would say, besides my dad being there, and so me being part of the program and seeing that, Coach Ron Miller, he was great at getting kids to come out, and he was great at getting kids to stay out for all 4 years. He built a team not just with the starters. He built a team with the starters and the reserves. He knew everybody had a place within that program, and they all deserved time from the coaches, and they all seemed to get the time from the coaches they needed. They may be counted on one day, one meet, whatever it was, their junior year, their freshman year, their senior year, and he almost always seemed to have them ready to go. So it was a great time in the program. It was a great bunch of kids, a great bunch of coaches, and a great community.